Well, I think there are definitely mutual benefits from these interactions. I'll give you an example. So I'm a psychiatrist, and of course I treat patients. One of my areas of interest, or my main area of interest, is psychosis. So when people have a profound disturbance in their experience of reality. So this immediately brings us into connection with philosophical concepts of what is reality, or what is a perception. You have a hallucination, it's a disordered perception, an abnormal perception, so we're immediately getting into assumptions that there's a normal kind of perception. And in my work as psychiatrists, we distinguish between what's a delusion and what's a hallucination. So we're making conceptual distinction between thought and experience. But we can learn from philosophers that these distinctions may be full of assumptions. So certainly I think there's many things that we can learn. Well, some of the challenges are quite pragmatic, I think, really, of the ethical challenges of how much. Well, we need to do research to make progress. That's clear. Of course, there's going to be no progress without research and innovation. We need the cooperation of our patients to do that research. Our patients may not always be in a good position to assess, or an ideal position to be able to give that corporate, very unwell. So we have to work and find ways, and we need a very strong ethical and governance framework to make sure that the work we're doing respects the rights of individuals, and to cooperate, to progress. So I think, yeah, we're asking for cooperation of patients, and we then need to take ethics very, very seriously. And of course, sometimes we're going to need to do trials of new treatments. And I think in psychiatry it is more complex, because the mind, by definition, we're working with people who are having mental problems, and therefore consent is more challenging than if you are in your perfect mental health, but you have a physical problem. You can consent to taking part in, a potentially dangerous trial. But I think there are certainly some issues about participation. And so that's where it in my work is the most clearly problematic. I suppose the other thing is sometimes we use healthy people as we disturb their mental state when they volunteer. But to use experimental compounds to sometimes mimic mild psychopathology. So to induce a transient disturbance in the processing of the brain and the mind, to then take some measurements and then perhaps introduce a treatment. So there's experiments that I've done where we give people a psychostimulant which will induce some altered mental processing, and then another treatment to see if we can reverse that. So these are all healthy people, they're fully informed, but there of course there are certainly ethical issues. Yeah. Well, we can get stuck in our silos, in our compartments, and sometimes you can make a lot of progress that way by being very fixed on a very particular problem, and you can make progress. But there are other times when you need to be exposed to some fresh ways of thinking to make progress. So I think, of course, we need a balance. We need a balance of, you've started on a line of inquiry, you need to push that through. But of course, as scientists, there are other times when you need to think about a new line of inquiry or a different approach to a problem. And sometimes that could be to generate a line of thought that could lead to a lot of progress.